yeah, you betcha. We're back. After 2 weeks of solid absence, we are back with year 2.
You had a nice sabbatical.
Of the Vox podcast. Oh my goodness, you've missed us. I can just hear it all across the country groaning because there was nothing on Monday morning. So we are back, and we're kicking off year 2 with a bit of a treat. So a year ago, this is 2016, fall of 2016. In fall of 2015, I'd resigned from a church and didn't quite know what to do with myself. And so I approached my friend Andy and I said, "Hey, how do you do a podcast? I think that'd be interesting." And so he was talking to me about what's true of the podcast space that's different from maybe a sermon or a book or just what are the expectations, like what can you do in a podcast that you can't do other places? And he said, you got to listen to a podcast called Bad Christian. And I immediately loved the name. And so I went and listened to several episodes of the Bad Christian podcast. And then there was an extension of that called The Pastor with No Answers, which if you listen to Bad Christian, it's perfectly titled. Yeah. And one of the guys that hosts both is a guy named Joey Svenson, who is a actual pastor in South Carolina. And so we actually were able to get an interview with him in the same way we did with Science Mike and Godless. They're all kind of in these really great spaces. So we were super excited to talk to him. So we're going to present the interview. Couple of disclaimers. First, he's got a book coming out called Fundamentalist, and it's about his journey with mental illness in a fundamentalist church and how those two kind of produce some crazy thinking. And he's if you listen to the podcast, if you listen to him at all, he is super honest. And this is, the book is ridiculously honest and
uncomfortably honest for a lot of people.
Yes. And so is our interview with him. So, so if you are listening with kids, because some of you listen with kids, if you're listening in a public space, just know there's some subject matter that is honest and some language that is honest, and we know that and didn't we've done similar things, so we're not. We just want to give you a heads up.
Right. This might be an earmuffs episode for the kids.
Yes.
And this might be one for the parents to listen to first, and then
cussing alert.
Yeah.
But it's a reflection of his book, and his book is occupying, like, I want to tell you what it was like to have OCD in a fundamentalist church where I had to pray, every night. I mean, and he'll talk about I had to pray every night to make sure I'd prayed correctly. Right. So that if I died in my sleep, I could know that I was going to heaven.
Yeah. I mean, I won't give away the book or anything, but there's just one like he kind of goes through in chapter 1, like how intense this was as like a kid. Like he'd be hanging out with his friends playing video games, and he'd think of something and realize, oh my gosh, I gotta go do the prayer again. Yeah. And he'd kind of like, oh, I gotta use the bathroom, run into the bathroom and do the prayer. And then it's just unbelievable.
And so this hits for us a couple of topics. Mental illness is a topic we've explored. And so we're huge advocates for people telling their story and making permission for other people to either be public and ask for help if they're wrestling, or what it is to give grace to somebody that you know and love that's wrestling through some of this stuff. Secondly, we are big fans of trying to close the gap between how Christians present themselves to the world, particularly if you're in professional, vocational ministry, and what we're really like. Right. And so he speaks passionately about that, and I love that. And then it just gives us an opportunity to make friends and find brothers and sisters in arms in this space that Vox, you've been gracious enough to allow Vox to be in, which is, our tagline is to talk about anything. So we've tried to do that, and he embodies that like times 10. So we're excited about that. As always, want to let you know just a couple of things. We've shifted from subversivekingdom.com to voxpodcast.com. And so that's where you're going to find us now. We're going to shut Subversive Kingdom down.
Yep, it's all forwarding now. So you can't even get to Subversive Kingdom.
So you can contact us. You can, say hello. You can get on an email list, right? You can do all of that at voxpodcast.com.
Yep.
And then we also are... we also have our little church podcast. We talk about this all the time, but we always have people coming from the podcast. We have visitors. We had a visitor from Philadelphia. We've got they didn't just come for us, just to be clear, but we've met a bunch of you from all over California and a couple from out of state, and so we're super grateful that when you're in Northern California, you'd stop by, not Northern Orange County, that you would stop by and say hello. That is voxoc.com. And we have a Vox community podcast, which are the teachings and the stories from our gatherings. And we're live streaming that
at 9 a.m. on the live stream app.
Yep. Right, on the live stream app, 9 a.m. Pacific time. So, if you're like, man, what a guy with Mike's voice, what's that guy look like? Well, just picture Jabba the Hutt and my wife like Princess Leia,
but
and
mainly the tongue.
Idea.
That's what we're referring to.
Oh no! I was thinking more the double chins, but okay.
or the big brown eyes.
Oh no, you have the big brown eyes.
True.
And then one last thing. We are super excited. We're going to release this on Monday. On Thursday of that same week, we are doing our first Vox live show. And that is Thursday the 27th at it's called Villain Studios in Placentia, downtown Placentia, which, is where you go. And we're going to have Coors Light there, and which I'm very excited about. And for people over the age of 21, there's Coors Light. And we're going to record a show on our last show before the election. It's just we're calling it The Kingdom of God and Politics. Right. And so it's not a Trump thing, it's not a Hillary thing, it's a much bigger thing. We're going to do some Q&A. We are so I'll present a little bit of material. Andy and I will be up there recording like we do, and then we're going to record a Q&A out of that.
Right.
And so it's free.
Right. And Izzy Ray will be there. She's going to be playing some music. Yep.
Andy will be there in a tank top is what I'm predicting.
Based on our weather, yeah.
We're full, right? We have RSVPs,
right? I mean, at the time we're recording this, we have like a handful of spots left, but and we opened up because we had a lot of demand. But if this thing pops and you guys let us know, that you would love to have this in your area right now. I mean, we'd love to kind of travel between LA, Orange County, San Diego, and see if you guys would be interested in coming together and listening to our nonsense and do this in front of you. So if you're interested, I mean, please let us know at hello@voxpodcast.com, and let us work it out. This is gonna be our first one, and the thing's sold out in 3 hours, and so we're just like, all right,
it's like Taylor Swift, man. This is like freaking Taylor Swift territory. So I knew you were trouble when you first walked in, or is that how it goes? Anyway, sure. So anyway, here's our interview with Pastor Joey Svenson, and again, earmuff time if appropriate. So here you go, Pastor Joey.
Yes.
Hey, thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for calling me pastor, man, because that's I feel so disrespected whenever people just call me Joey.
Yeah, seriously. And do you have an official pastoral degree?
Or
are you self-entitled? Are you kind of like an apostle? You just kind of roam around calling yourself that, or is it legit?
Yeah, well, it depends on how you define legit. I actually got a master's degree from school in India that is not.
Are you being real right now?
Yeah, I am.
Okay,
I am. I always forget the word of whether it's official in America. It's
accredited.
Yes, it's not accredited in America, but I don't care. I just did it for the learning.
Nice.
And so yeah, I have a master's degree from.
I have a PhD from a guy in Nigeria that needed $2,500, and so
that you got from Craigslist.
Yeah, exactly. All right, and you are a pastor. It is you are an official pastor.
Yep.
At a large church.
I get the tax break and everything.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, it's a large church that is spread out with
Multi-site
different locations. Yes. So
okay.
Our location probably 350, 400, but this is a church of close to 15,000. So yeah, it's one of those monster mega churches, man.
So are you a campus pastor? Is that the right? Okay. So you oversee that location.
Right. You get it.
Do you teach? Do you get to teach there?
Very rarely.
Okay.
Very rarely.
Okay.
Yep.
So they trust you to push play.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
and which came first for you? So I'm assuming how long has the pastor gig been going?
Since 2008, I've been working at Seacoast since 2005.
Okay,
so I've been here for a while. Yep.
Oh, okay. And then when did for those Voxers who don't know, Joey is a founder and host of two of the most influential podcasts, kind of in the religion and spirituality space.
No, just in general.
In of all,
behind Serial,
behind yes, and just behind the Harry Potter sacred text, Joel Osteen fight for number one. So you've got Bad Christian, and you've got which is kind of like the Oprah show. Bad Christian has launched all of these podcast careers.
Yeah.
So, Science Mike is the Dr. Phil and whatever else. And I'm
just waiting for Bad Christian to start giving away cars.
Yeah. Yes. and then Pastor with No Answers, right? That's the more recent of the two.
Yeah. Yep. My brother and we've been doing that one for a year. So
how would you, when people say like, how do you describe the space that you guys are in with those podcasts? You're in the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
But you're having really interesting, really raw, really honest discussions about stuff not normally talked about.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, so you're asking kind of like what makes us unique?
How do you describe it? If you're talking to somebody that that doesn't have any idea of what it is that you do.
Yeah.
How are you describing the space that Bad Christian and Pastor with No Answers kind of occupies?
Yeah. Well, those are two different questions. So with Bad Christian, I would say that the three of us, our short-term goal is to be as real as we can possibly be, similar to what we are behind closed doors, but there are definitely limitations there because I would get fired from my jobs. People would stop listening to our podcast just because behind closed doors, of course, we say the most insane, craziest jokes you could ever imagine.
Yeah. So Billy Bush, Billy Bush has a job opening, so he might be a great podcast host for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. But we believe in that gap being as small as it can possibly be. So I think what people get from our podcast is they're like, wait a second. They're scratching their heads because they're just like, these guys are Christians, and yet they're asking that dude's a pastor, and he's expressing major doubt, and then that dude just said fuck, and like, wait a second here, this just doesn't make sense. And I'm telling you, as crazy as it sounds, I'm telling you, there have been people that have written us, and because I've had people say, look, come on. I mean, seriously, the language, I mean, I'm not anti-cuss words, but seriously. And our answer to, like, is it necessary? And our answer is, well, first of all, that's kind of how we talk just generally. So we're not really doing anything just to do it. But secondly, we have had people tell us when we heard you guys say certain words, the walls came down, because all of a sudden we're like, they're like, okay, those are our people. They're saying Jesus and these words. And I know that may sound silly to people, but the people that sounds silly to, that's not who we're talking to.
Yeah,
so go ahead and go ahead and call it silly. That's fine. But it's not for you.
Yeah. And then Pastor with No Answers, is that, how do you see that as occupying a different space?
Yeah, well, yes. The different space that it's occupying is kind of, for me personally, like it's almost an outlet for me. Like, I love doing Bad Christian, but the purpose of Bad Christian isn't necessarily to take one topic and do it for an hour. We have done that, but we also want to cut up. We want to be very personal, tell stuff, what's going on in our lives, and that sort of thing. Pastor with No Answers, I mean, the title of the episode is a topic, and that's what we talk about the whole time. And I will say that I am a little. I think the nature of it is a little more, a little less reckless.
Yeah. Okay.
But to me, that's not inauthentic, just as it wouldn't be inauthentic for me not to say the F word in front of my grandma, or for me not to beatbox at a funeral. Like, there's just different places where we act a little bit differently because we're just kind of adapting to the environment.
Of course. Sure. I mean, in my experience, like, I felt like Pastor with No Answer seems like a very true expression of where you kind of live and exist in the kind of topics that you've been really interested in, even with the guests on Bad Christian, and where it seems like if I was to take this topic to a different area and different level, how would I have that conversation? And you kind of, you go there. So I kind of appreciate the expression and the extension, because I feel like I can listen to both shows and I'm getting like a larger breadth of like your interests. Like, I mean, and I've started listening to Unstoppable Badass, like with Toby, which is just like the most outrageous podcast variety show.
Stop.
All right.
Stop. Toby, or excuse me, Andy's going fanboy right now, which
hardly.
No, I don't blame him. He's always considered me a poor substitute for the Bad Christian podcast network. Now, how has this, what I'm curious about is how has stepping into that space affected your Jesus following? So it's much more public. It's become a thing, right? Because Bad Christian now is a thing. It's you got to have a host of podcasts. You host a podcast network. You have a bunch of stuff, a bunch of tributaries kind of coming out of it. How has that changed the Jesus following that is the heart of kind of what you do as a pastor and just for you personally?
Yeah. Well, I just think it's remarkable to me personally just how much of an impact the guests that we've had on our show for just an hour, talking to them, and oh my gosh, the wheels in my mind have just been turning like crazy. So I think I've been, and I honestly, I think there's a knee-jerk reaction to this word because it's just used all the time, but there's no other way of saying that I've been going through a significant deconstruction of faith, because people have to understand I came from a very fundamentalist, Pentecostal, don't wear shorts to church sort of background. So obviously I've changed a lot, but some of the change, I mean, and I went from being super broken and super in a very dark place of not even understanding faith to, a way more free place. But like, for example, Science Mike, Peter Enns, Mikey Bridges from Sometimes Sunday. I mean, which is an old school Christian band that most people have never heard. I'm just listening to these guys and I'm like, these are my people. Like, sure, there's some people locally that I can rub shoulders with and be that way with, but there's just something about, I mean, I love all my Christian brothers and sisters, but there's something about people that just get what you're talking about and you don't have to, explain yourself. So I would say that's been a huge one. But man, just in general, I mean, Matt's one of the co-hosts. We were talking about just a year ago, we can listen to podcast episodes that we've done or things that we've written and be like, wow, I can't believe I said it that way, because I'm not even sure if I'm there. And, he makes a pretty profound statement, which I would agree is like, if you're not changing your beliefs at all, then you're not growing. And I've always been a little bit, I don't know about, but I'm fully on board with that. I mean, I just think because otherwise we're assuming that everything we believe is perfectly accurate and we've just got an end to absolute truth and we know exactly what it is. So
how many people that would come to your campus know this other side?
Yes. The people that do know are the ones that like it. The people that don't know are the ones that would leave the church. So
okay. All right. That's good.
There's definitely, I have been very careful it's really because of how I wanted to roll. Like, our church is pretty loose with this sort of thing, but I do not want to use my local church to get Bad Christian out. So people just started to discovering it. And there has been a few situations where the wrong people have discovered it. Yeah. And I'm telling you, seeing how our senior pastor, who again is the pastor of a 15,000 member or attended church, it was pretty awesome to see how he handled that.
Oh, I love that.
It was pretty awesome.
Okay, so he really was with you and blesses this. And
well, here's what he said. He copied me. Well, the lady copied me on the email that she sent him, and he basically responded and said, "Look, I don't agree with everything that he's saying, but I trust his heart. They're talking to a demographic that would not listen to us.
That's good.
And
that's right. That's exactly right.
And so he didn't go out there and said, yeah, I agree with everything.
Sure.
I support, but he did say, I support him. And I mean, I'm telling you, that just meant a lot to see him handle it that way.
Yeah, that is wonderful.
But I will say we're also a church that I think we've been lucky that there has been significant distance from people that go to Seacoast Church and people that listen to Bad Christian, because they really are two different crowds for the most part.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if we've seen what they would see as detrimental effects of the two overlapping more. I don't think I would see it as detrimental. I'd be like, no, this is good. People are being challenged in what they think. Yeah. But I understand where they're coming from too. Like, they see their role as shepherding, and if they think my role in Bad Christian would be confusing to people that go to Seacoast, then so be it.
Do you think that'll change with the book coming out? So you've got a book coming out called Fundamentalist.
Yeah. Right.
About your journey with mental illness, and it is raw I don't even have a stronger word for raw. It's just like, take raw and multiply it, and then you get this. And so do you think that'll change at all?
Maybe. Okay. Maybe. I mean, and here's what I think is so interesting, because I 100% agree with how you just described the book, but like, it's only raw because people are not going there. And the there that I'm talking about is just simply telling the truth. This is the stuff I went through. Yeah. Like, these are the thoughts that were in my head, and I'm willing to say them. And I mean, the only, like, it's not hurting anybody. Like, and that's what I think is so crazy, is so many people be like, whoa, you gotta watch, you've got a certain level of influence and stuff. I was like, for telling the truth? Like, I mean, that's a bad thing? Yeah. So yeah, it's unfortunate that it would be seen as raw, but I totally agree.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was thinking of, so I've been very public about clinical depression and anxiety. And that's been, as you kind of come out, to use that language, it's so interesting how many people come to you and say, oh yeah, me too. Right. And I would imagine in the fundamentalist background that you describe, in the Bible Belt, there's extra stigma to overcome.
Yeah.
So share, if you wouldn't mind, just share a little bit about what the it is that you've had to wrestle through in the Jesus following, and kind of how Bad Christian and Pastor with No Answers is kind of it's almost an expression of the journey you've had to go on to wrestle with all the stuff rattling around your head.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to start answering the question. If I'm not answering what you're asking, then just stop me. But I would say that it is really one word, and that's honesty. Like, I think that there is so much inauthenticity in the church, and it's motivated, I think, from a good place, because we actually do think, man, if we can really moderate how people perceive us, then we are going to be way more helpful in influencing them. And that's wrong. And, I'll give you a perfect example. The higher a person is on the totem pole, the more careful they have to be. And, don't drink in public and all that stuff. Well, what happens when that person falls? Because we all are going to fall. Then it is mayhem. Right, and then you've got thousands of people that were like
all over.
All the time, man. Yes. All the time. So, I mean, I'm surprised and shocked that we currently are not at a point where we're just like, well, wait a second, this is all wrong. Like, everybody start being open. And man, I wish that there were some mega church pastors like at the level of, your Andy Stanleys and I would love it if he said, you know what? Screw this. I'm changing everything. Like, no more guarding anything. No more, dude, I actually had a mega church pastor come on the Bad Christian podcast, and love the guy, respect him. But he actually told me on the podcast, he said, because there was an episode with Lecrae that we did, and I told Lecrae that we were at a music festival, and someone asked us what were our struggles with porn recently, and I was like, okay, now it's do or die. Do I say it or do I hide it? Because that week I had looked at porn, and it's not a habit that I was in. I thank the Lord I wasn't an addict, but I knew it was that week, so I could have just said, "Oh yeah, I'm doing well," but I was just like, "Okay, I can't do that. That's against everything we've ever said." And so, in front of hundreds of people, I shared that, and I told that to this pastor, and he basically said, "Yeah, you should have done that in a smaller group."
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, I disagreed with him, but now, a year or two later, I can't disagree anymore, because basically what we're saying is me being open about something that's real in my life is harmful to people.
Right.
Yeah.
That's insane.
You're giving them permission.
That's
You're
insane.
you're not being a good example.
Condoning
Right.
sin.
So what I'm hearing you say, and I resonate so diligently with this, is it's the pretending that the church has embraced, that fuels so much of how it is that you are inhabiting public Christian space. It's the reason we want to close that public-private gap is because we still are surprised when pastors, resign for marital troubles or inappropriate texting or drinking too much or whatever. We're still shocked by that.
Right.
And there is a consumer producer dynamic where churches have a vested interest in perfect leaders, and leaders have a vested interest in maintaining their perfect image.
Right. Yeah, totally.
And so you're stepping out, talking about mental illness with a degree of rawness that I don't even think Bad Christian has fully captured, although it's come close. Yeah. It sounds like. So what are the things that you're most excited about? This is your first book, is that right? Your first solo?
First solo. Yep. And dude, I have to say this, that I can't even feel right about saying solo. Matt Johnson, who works with us, helped me so much. Like, he's got a background in editing and writing and all that stuff. So, this book would not have been done without him. Basically, the setup is I'm writing all the content, but then he's going through it and putting it in a logical order and all that. So just props to him. But yeah, I would say the most... The thing that excites me the most is what initially brought hesitation, and that is I actually came to a place where I saw this content coming together, and I saw where this book was going, and I stopped and I said, do I really want this to be public information?
Right.
And it was seriously a crossroads for me.
Well, it's like the porn question. Yeah. It's like the porn question. Is it are we really going to go there?
Right. Exactly. And the answer, once it dawned on me, I was like, this is such an easy answer. Of course I want to go there, because if I don't go there, then I believe that could possibly bring harm, because here I am, a human being that for some reason or another, God has given us some sort of a listenership. Mm-hmm. And I really have struggled with these bizarre, irrational thoughts, depression, OCD. So I keep that secret. And basically, I'm just telling all of our listeners who do struggle with all that, hey, keep struggling and screw you, because I'm certainly not going to go there with you. And so, man, we have one life to live, and I'm probably, I've got a good 30 years left. Why would I not just be completely open?
Because you're in your 20s. You're in your early 20s, clearly.
Thank you, man. I know I look that way. I know I look it.
So let me ask you this. So we just planted a church out of a podcast.
Yeah.
And so we're in the process of trying to combat some of the things that you're combating as well. Mm-hmm. If you were going to start a church with kind of all of this in view, what would that look like?
Well,
do you ever think about that?
Yes, I have already. So my wife and I, we have a Sunday night group that we unapologetically call it a church, because it is. And the majority of people that are involved are not affiliated with another church. They're just like, no, this is our place. And I think just some low-hanging fruit is the fact that It's not all contingent on anybody getting paid. It's not contingent on us having to pay for a location. It's not centered around one dude that's teaching weekly. Our resources are combined to where we actually have gotten shit done with money and within the group and outside the group. And dude, I underscored that majorly as far as just how much that brings people together when you are actually giving up financial resources and you're seeing other people do the same, and then you're seeing other people benefiting from that. I mean, talk about drawing a group close together. And just, I think recognizing that, hey, you know what? The best possible way you can spend your time together is hanging out and then getting below the surface and just talking about stuff. And the fact that most of us are Christians, hey, the Jesus stuff is going to come out. We are going to go spiritual. Right. We are going to seek truth together. And if we believe God is truth, then we're going to arrive there, at some point. Yep. And, but man, it's, So I would say it's more the absence of a bunch of stuff than it is.
Oh, that's good. That's a good way to describe it. That's a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
So, as if you were going to give people a reason to read Fundamentalist, what's the reason? What's the thing you want them walking away from? With.
Well, first of all, I want to give people permission, and this is how I approached it, and so this is why I think it's such a fun read. Is I want to give people permission to read it just out of entertainment if they want to. now that is actually, and I think people would understand, that's actually an uncomfortable thought for my wife, and I honor that and I respect that. And the reason why it's uncomfortable for her is it's not just an entertaining story for her. It's been hell. Yeah. Like, she's actually gone through real stuff with me, and it's actually been super painful. So her thinking about someone reading, my story, which is a part of her story, and just saying, oh man, that's awesome. That doesn't sit well with her. And so I understand that. But I kind of think that if somebody reads it from beginning to end and even approaching it as, man, this is super interesting and I'll get some laughs out of it, I think the byproducts of it will be more of an understanding of mental illness. And that is helpful because either we struggle with mental illness or we know someone that does. And so hopefully just through my openness and what I didn't set out to do is like be an authoritative voice with that stuff. All I can do is tell my story and what I've learned and the questions I still have, the questions that I think that I have answered, and just kind of go from there.
Yeah. What do you because it seems like the word to describe what you're looking for is permission. So permission to be in process if you're struggling, or permission to love those who are struggling. And the book, I mean, we can't say it enough. Holy cow, it is so freaking raw. Are there any? So it sounds like your sweet wife has some wrestlings. Is there anything else that concerns you about all of this going public? Because you've talked about some of this, right? I mean, I don't think you've made you've made it a secret. You've wrestled with some of this, but some of the it seems like some of the content is more raw than what you've covered so far.
Yeah. Well, you guys will get a kick out of this. So the penis chapter, and so basically just some quick context is I had an irrational fear that masturbating in the 7th grade was premature, and it tricked my body into stopping the growth of my penis. And so I struggled with this for years, and it sounds like a joke, but it sure laughed, but it also happened. But I think what's so funny is we were talking about something on the Bad Christian podcast, and this is obviously to a lot of people, it's an epic story because it's like, you have got to be kidding me. And something was mentioned, and it just made me think of that. And so I'm telling Matt and Toby this for the first time. And I mean, you should see the look on Matt's face, like his eye, because we make fun of him because he's not that much, doesn't show a lot of emotion. And his eyes were just as big as baseballs. And he just kept shaking his head. No, not out of don't go there, but just out of, I cannot believe this is happening. Like, I cannot believe we're talking about this. The only other concern would be, and I I want to parent very differently than I think what is expected as from church folks with Christian parents. I think there's a certain way of doing it that I don't necessarily agree with, but the outside chance that any of my kids could be heckled for some of this material, I hate the thought of that, but I don't think the book is worth not writing because of that. And I just think that I think our lives are so our lives are already public on the podcast, and I want my kids to be drenched in a culture of none of us are the heroes. Like, none of us have things together. We do have major stuff that's wrong with us, and so sure, there's going to be hiccups along the way as far as people getting hurt and wishing that such and such wasn't out there. But I guess that could possibly fall in the category of fear, but I just don't, bottom line is when my daughter is old enough my daughters and sons, when they're old enough to understand sex and all that stuff, by all means, read the book, and then let's talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me, you hit on something I think is really interesting, which is kind of how Christians parent. Yeah. Versus at least the expectation of what Christian parenting is versus what you're thinking. Can you explore that a little bit?
Well, for me, oh man, if I had not gone through the changes that I've gone through in the last 6 or 7 years, parenting from a spiritual perspective would have just been so easier, because there's so black and white, just sealed tight theology. Sweetie, this is just how it is. Like, you just have to believe it. I know what such and such says. I know what your science teacher says. I know what all they say, but they're just wrong. You have to disregard all of that stuff. Where now, I remember my daughter, she's 10 now, and she's asked questions about Adam and Eve. And I'll say, look, I'll tell you what Dad thinks. But bottom line, it's not even really that important. Like, if Genesis is allegorical, that doesn't mean that the Jesus that we're following is any less real. If it is a true historical story, then great. She's asked questions about hell, and I said, sweetie, not all Christians believe that people are going to be tortured forever. There's actually different beliefs. And so just not setting them up to have only heard one sealed tight approach to theology and then getting in the real world and hearing all sorts of stuff, and then they're thinking on their own. So I want to raise them with more of I don't have the answers. And I am so comfortable with this part. I will tell my kids, I don't have the answers about most stuff, but your dad has found to just believe that Jesus is God and that he came on this earth and that he came to rescue us because he wants us to be with him forever. And the only way was for him to die. That's the thing that I'm just convinced of. I'm just, but I also have no problem with saying, maybe I'm wrong. I just don't think so. I am convinced, and here's why. But I don't want to.
You should start the Father with No Answers podcast.
Yeah. There you go.
No, I have 3 kids too. Yeah. Do you have 3? I didn't. I just
4.
mean I have. Okay.
4.
All right. Yeah. So I'm still.
But can I tell you that I don't want to sound too confident, because that's not totally authentic. That also scares me, because I am so fresh in rethinking things, and I want to debunk something that I think a lot of, if you do have some conservative listeners, I'd imagine you have some just like we do. There's a misconception of people that are going through deconstruction, like they're these rebels that just are setting out to ruffle feathers and shake things up and stuff. I cannot. That's so wrong. I can't help the stuff that I'm processing. And I feel like I'm being honest in reacting to these things that I have to think through. So it would be so much nicer if I didn't have to think anything. It'd be so much easier.
Sure.
That's just not the reality. But what is a little uncomfortable is the fact that I'm figuring things out right now.
Yeah.
And I'm also given responsibility for kids that are looking at me for cues.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
my wife, it's so awesome. That does not bother her a bit. She's just like, no, I want my kids to be free. I want them to know that God loves them. And we are not going to worry about that, because she sees just the adverse effects that my upbringing, not necessarily from my parents, but more from,
Right.
the churches that we're involved in. I mean, it messed me up. I still struggle. I went to my friend Devin's mom's funeral last week, and he came from the same churches that I came from. And I'm telling you, hearing that pastor, there was a part of me that was almost like scared, because it just took me back to a place of such bondage that I didn't even realize I was under as a kid. I mean, as a kid, I enjoyed going to church. I liked going there. I thought like this, hey, this is the place to be. But inside there was like this fear that was being fed to me, and like this bondage and, constant fear of having to have said the right words and I talk about this in the book. It's almost like I saw God as like a computer program more than a personal God that loved me. And it was like, if I type in the right words, then I'm saved. But if I mess up on some things, he can't save me, because I didn't give him the password that gets me in. And I have to point to the churches that I was raised in and say, you guys are at fault with some of that.
Because it wasn't just that there was mental illness. I mean, that's a big enough issue.
Right.
But it's also that the church's handling of Jesus, the teaching, the way they've presented Jesus following, also made much worse.
Right.
The struggle, correct?
Right. Oh yeah, definitely. It was a recipe for disaster.
So
like
go ahead.
I was just going to say, my mental illness that included OCD, when you match that with the legalism and the grace with strings attached, I mean, it was a recipe for disaster.
Yes.
And go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I keep interrupting. There's just good stuff I keep wanting to pull out. So the grace with strings. Talk about that. How did that play?
It blows my mind. Like, I literally went to a church from the time I was 8 to the time I was graduated from high school, 2 different churches. And I mean, people were just so happy about grace. Praise God, we are saved by grace. We sang songs about being saved by grace. But I swear to you, the vast majority of people, including the pastors, believed that, man, if you were driving in your car and you were having lustful thoughts and you got in a wreck, you're in hell forever because you had unrepentant sin. And Jesus is not powerful enough to figure that one out. And so it's just like you're on shaky ground all the time. Dude, I'm telling you, the most serious prayers of repentance that I ever had was before falling asleep, because I knew once I was asleep, that's 8 hours of, if I have sin on my heart and God comes back, or if I die for some reason, I mean, I'm lost eternally. So those prayers before I went to sleep, boy, I had to nail it, man.
Oh my goodness. Oh, so combine that with OCD, and you have to make sure every box is checked and every T is crossed. Yeah. I could see where that was crazy.
It was so frustrating to wake up in high school and to get up and be like, gosh, I don't think I said everything right. And I was like, okay, I got to do it again. And so I would sit there and I would be reciting the prayer, and I would be like, am I concentrating enough? Am I totally awake? Am I focused? Am I sorry? And then I'll get to the end and I'll be like, okay, I think we're good. I think we're good. Then I'll be walking out to the car and something will pop in my head and say, nah, you actually didn't address Jesus. Like, you actually said God. And then it's just blown away. And I'm like, oh shit, I can't do it now because there's people in the car.
Yes.
Okay. This is something that I don't tell in the book, and it just happened to not get in there. But this
bonus
is
material.
Dude, this is hilarious. So we're sitting there in German class, and it's one of those programs to where everybody has headphones on. We're listening to people speak German, and so I'm kind of looking around. I'm like, cool, everybody has headphones on. I can work out my salvation right now. So I'm seriously sitting there, and I'm like, Lord, please forgive me of my sins. God, please, Jesus, please. I want to be a Christian. I want to be saved. And I'm saying all this stuff verbally. I look over, and the class pothead is sitting there with his headphones off because he's like, F this. I'm not listening to this German stuff. And he is scared to death. He's sitting there like, oh, Jesus, what's going on? What's going on?
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, I didn't know him, and so we had never talked about that ever.
Right.
Like, he didn't say, "Hey, what the hell were you doing?"
Right.
And I didn't go up to him and say, "Hey, man, I got to explain some stuff." So it was just, I'm sure he tells, when he's a grandfather, he's going to say, "One time I was in German class."
Oh, but bondage is the right word for that. I mean, that is what was it that began to work itself out so that wasn't that form of Jesus following, which isn't following Jesus at all. How did that begin to change for you?
Yeah, well, I think that's a tricky question that I haven't completely figured out, and I think why that is they're seriously, like, the root of it all was the mental illness. And so I was so convinced that my problems were spiritual, and so I needed to work stuff out spiritually, and then I would be okay mentally. Then I would because I didn't realize that depression was it. I just thought that there was stuff going on, that I was just kind of a sad person, but that was because I didn't have enough faith. And so all this stuff I was so convinced was spiritual. But bottom line is, let's just say I started taking Zoloft in high school and my chemicals started being balanced, I would have definitely started thinking a little more correctly. Now, I do think that along the way, I had to come to, to a place where I'm like, wait a second, God wants to save me. Like, if the God of the Bible is true, he actually he's not going to disqualify me on a technicality. I mean, if he's omniscient, then he knows everything I've ever thought. And so he knows that I'm petrified of being separated from him. So a loving father is like, that dude knows, that dude is acknowledging me, period. Right. He's mine. Right. I mean, I think it's way more simple. I don't even know if I believe in a necessary, I mean, this is how far I've come. I don't know if somebody needs to sit there and say a sinner's prayer. I think that salvation can happen in many different ways. I definitely don't believe in a magic word formula. So.
Right. Yeah, that is quite the journey.
Yeah.
And it really does make sense.
Wait, are you guys laughing at me or with me?
Oh no, we're with.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if you're eating pizza right now too.
Nope.
No, I think that there is that, because I can't help but kind of share a bit of the same journey and skepticism towards the inauthenticity, towards the pretense, towards the no room for people that are currently struggling. Every story has to be about victory, years ago.
Oh yeah.
And so I resonate with that. If you were going to talk to, we've got loads of folks who are in process with mental illness. What would you say? What would if you were sitting across from somebody and they're just looking at you and they're telling you their story?
Oh, dude, I would say buy my book, please. No, I'm just kidding.
You got a curriculum available,
right? Right.
That's right. There's a video, small group guide.
Yep.
All right, so this is going to sound very pastoral of me, and
look out now.
But this is the honest truth. The first, anything outside of this would be very complete, especially what I've already gone through. I mean, the first thing I would want to convey to them is I'm freaking sorry as anything that you're going through this, because I know it is hell. I mean, it is just miserable. I know you are living out a literal hell, and I'm sorry. I mean, I really am sorry. It really sucks. And that would be, I think, my starting point.
Yep.
Because bottom line is, I literally counseled with a lady who knew that I had struggled, and she was sharing her struggles with me. And I didn't know at the time, but she was struggling to the point where when she left my office, she ended up in a psychiatric treatment center. I totally could have been like, whoa, what did I say so bad to her? But bottom line is, I mean, she was at such a level to where, sure, it probably gave her somewhat of a small sense of relief that I was opening up to her about my struggles. But bottom line, she was at a point where I could not help her. I mean, that would be like me sitting with someone who has crazy diabetes and thinking I can help them by saying something to them.
It's pronounced diabetes.
Diabetes, yes.
My diabetes. But yes,
sorry,
That's
I haven't
exactly
seen
right.
Wilford Brimley in a long time. Those commercials.
Oh Lord, have mercy. No, but that's absolutely right. There are some things we can't. A simple prayer isn't going to fix,
Right.
or a good conversation isn't going to resolve.
Yeah.
So that's huge. That's huge.
Yep.
And you do end the book, even though it's the raw, parts of your story, you do end the book with, okay, so if you're living with a loved one that's wrestling, or if you are wrestling, here's some good stuff.
Yeah.
So we're grateful, man. We're grateful for you. We're grateful for the space you occupy. And, we totally affirm, just not that you need it from us, but we are, because I can't imagine all your peers are thrilled with what's going on. Yeah. But we're fans, and one of the things that we've found ourselves in is some similar spaces on the West Coast of realizing that there aren't a lot of people who are known as pastors speaking about some of the most pressing stuff going on.
Right.
And there's this kind of this image, I think, that is presented on social media and wherever, where it's just like, it's just going to be devotional words today. We're never gonna get beyond that. So we're grateful. We're grateful for you. So Fundamentalist comes out sometime in November.
Yep.
And it's through Bad Christian Publishing.
Yep. And it's called BC Words. Is our DIY publishing company, and people can actually pre-order right now by going to fundamentalistpastor.com, and we've got I think somewhat of a funny video, a quick little description. Toby Morrell, lead singer of Memory, is going to do an audio book of it, and so we're kind of excited.
Did you have to buy that domain name from a Southern Baptist preacher?
Oh man, it was available.
What?
What? Oh, I could not believe it.
Oh my
goodness,
unreal.
Could not believe it. Yep. Hey, you guys, I'll end with this story. You guys are going to kick out of this. So Matt, we're at a level now. I mean, we're big shots, man. We got people writing stuff for us.
I like it.
No, Matt didn't even write this email, but he signed off on it, and so it's sitting right there. Matt Carter, the emails from there. So a family member of mine got an email from Matt Carter, and it's basically saying Joey came out with a book. He talks about, how he said the sinner's prayer 1,000 times, how he thought he had stunted the growth of his penis and all this stuff. This family member texts me, and they're being 100%, they're just so concerned. They said, "We just received an email from your friend, Matt. You would not believe what he is saying about you." And so I immediately thought that they got like his email had been hacked or something. And so I was just like, well, can you forward it to me? They forwarded it, and it was like, that's the mass email that we're sending out. So that is actually kind of hard.
Sorry to disappoint you, but that's actually all true.
Yeah,
exactly. That is hard, because there is an older generation. They cannot understand the value in that sort of transparency, especially in the South. I mean, there's stuff you just don't talk about.
Right.
And for me to look at those people and say, hey, you're messed up, that's stupid. That's just how they were brought up. Like, they cannot put their mind in a place to think of anything good that can come out of that sort of openness. That's the kind of stuff you keep to yourself or with close people. And so that's hard, because I have people in my family that fall under that line of thinking, and I don't want to hurt them. Right. I mean, but it's definitely not worth avoiding to put the book out to, pacify people that don't even necessarily need to read it.
Right. That's good, dude. That's good. Anything you want to add, Andy?
Yeah, like Mike gives me a hard time about it, but yeah, for sure. I think not only like, sure, I'm a fan in the.
No, I'm jealous.
Yeah,
it's not a hard time. It's out of jealousy.
Yeah, I'm totally a fan in the entertainment, like, kind of space of like everything that you guys have done and accomplished. But more than anything, I think I just offer a huge thank you to you guys, because I really truly think that you guys are pioneering a particular space that in a way has given us similar permission to enter it as well. I've been listening to the Bad Christian podcast, for probably almost 2 years now. I think started in on the first 20 episodes when you guys started, and I felt like where we were working before in a mega church, it was like, gosh, these guys are actually saying everything we're all thinking.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so refreshing to hear people having a conversation about it without all these definitive terms of this. But like, man, like if there could, it just got me excited to think about like, well, I'd love to find a place in a way that we get to push Mike into that space, because Mike has shared a lot of these same similar thoughts for a long time.
Yeah. Are you talking about me?
Yeah, I'm talking about you.
Oh, okay.
And it's kind of like, and I've worked with Mike now for around kind of that same time period that, I started listening to you guys and was working with him, and I'm like, oh, there just seems like there's this time coming when this will actually be able to happen. And when we stepped into this and started doing this podcast, we felt that same amount of permission come in from folks that just jumped on the stuff that we were talking about. And so I kind of, I just respect you guys so much, and, feel like we exist in this peer space. And like, man, it's nice to feel like in a way we are totally bigger than something than ourselves. And we're just giving a small contribution to a much larger conversation that we feel is changing things and moving things. And, just say, keep going, keep pushing, and keep doing what you guys are doing. I think you're doing a really great thing.
Andy has never used that many words in affirmation of anything else ever.
True.
But secondly,
I appreciate it, man.
I don't.
Yeah.
I think there's a generational thing too. I mean, you raised the older generation, and I almost feel like the job of Gen Xers, I don't know if you agree with this, is to kind of translate the faith of our parents into a generation that is separated by the largest cultural gap in the history of the planet, in terms of not shared values and not shared priorities and massively different worldview. And it's kind of like Xers. Our role is almost to be translators, because we kind of understand both worlds in ways.
Right.
I get some of the older generation stuff, and I get some of the millennial stuff. And so I see the gift as being translators, bridging a cultural divide that could not be bridged otherwise.
Yeah.
So take that.
That's profound. I'm gonna have to think on that, my friend.
Whoa.
I'm gonna have to let that incubate a little bit, and then I'll unpack it with you later. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Thanks for your time. We appreciate you.
I'll just say real fast, just what's the last couple things where people can find you and hear more about what you're working on.
All right, so people can go to fundamentalistpastor.com and pre-order the book. And there's better deals right now to pre-order it. And two things here, and I think you guys are right when you say we're occupying similar space. When you actually do say, hey, you know what, I can spare $7 for a digital copy of a book, you're not only buying a book, you're also saying, hey, I believe in how people are conveying information. I think it's important, so I'm going to support it, because, bottom line is, the more these sorts of podcasts and books and music and all that stuff is supported, the more that's going to come from it. So it really is significant to decide, okay, I'm actually going to buy it.
And I imagine the old lady in Birmingham, Alabama, who Googles, searching for a fundamentalist pastor, and lands on that site is not gonna have a good day. Let's just put it that way.
Massive heart attack.
Yeah. All right, so go ahead and wrap us in.
Awesome,
right,
Joey. Thanks a lot, man. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you later.
Hey, thank y'all.
You got it.
Wow. There it was. So again, I mean, this is why Bad Christian and their whole thing is loved in a lot of quarters and reviled in other quarters, because as he said, I mean, I think there are loads of people who don't understand the value of being so open. And so I love that we got into that, why that matters and why that seems significant. And so we're thrilled with having the opportunity to get to know a bit of him differently than the Bad Christian side or the Pastor with No Answer side. It's interesting to hear his journey, and again, if you pick up the book, you're going to get it in massive spades in terms of just like, well, you got a taste. So,
you got a taste.
So it's more of that. So anyway, we're thrilled to be in year 2 with you all, and we cannot even begin to tell you how humbled we are, how awestruck I am that we get to do this. and that you've tuned in.
Right. Well, and let me make a comment about that. Like that's, with having Joey on specifically, and as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, like I made the recommendation to Mike, like, yeah, like check this podcast out if we want to kind of imagine what it's like to enter into a space where we talk about
anything,
Jesus issues, Christian issues, the church issues. I'm like, these guys are doing it in a pretty overt way, but I think that there's some value there. And for me, I'm just saying a big public thank you for Bad Christian to pioneer this, because before them, to my knowledge and what I followed, there wasn't this alternative voice going there. Right. And it's not for everybody, for sure. I mean, there's times where even I'm like, I don't really want to listen to this, and so I'll switch to something else. But time and time again, I'm going back to it and listening to these three guys, go at it. And sure, there's a level of entertainment to it. There's a lot of fun to it. But the things that they're saying have such a sense of reality, and it's genuine. And I'm like, I can't deny that, because I'll go and listen to something else that's around the Christian space. And I'm like, something just doesn't. It's
Joel Osteen?
Yeah, like when I click on Joel, I'm like, there's something else here that I'm just not getting.
I can't feed the beast.
Maybe it's the Brillo haircut. I just don't.
So handsome.
I just don't know. But that's anyways, I'm just giving more props in that direction, saying keep going. I would say that because of the success of their show and some of their extended shows, I think that has allowed us to step into this space with a bit more like, hey, we're not as afraid to be the only ones talking about this. There's other folks talking about this stuff.
And we know that there's a hunger,
right? Yep.
For people to be real and to talk about real stuff.
Yeah.
So we're very grateful for you. We're very grateful. If you liked hearing, and you like the approach of what Joey was doing, then you should check out Bad Christian and you should check out Pastor with No Answers. If you don't, then you will not like those podcasts, because it's a lot of that. It's a lot of raw processing.
Yeah.
So all that is to say, my brothers and my sisters, we're grateful for you, and we're very humbled that we get to do this. So in the car or at work or in the gym, or falling asleep gently to the sound of this silky voice. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord shine his face upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance to you and give you peace. Or in the words of Mr. Spock, live long and prosper. Till next time.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Vox Podcast. Learn more about us at voxpodcast.com. Follow us on Twitter at The Vox Podcast. And as always, comment, share, and interact with us on Facebook at facebook.com/officialmikeerie.